Do you ever feel exhausted by the things you conjure up in your own mind? An indifferent glance from someone, an incomplete remark, a trivial situation. Any of these can unsettle our mind for hours, even days. Sometimes, no one does anything to us, yet we suffer. Why is that? The Buddha once taught that suffering doesn't arise from circumstances themselves, but from how we perceive those circumstances. It's the same rain. Some people find it romantic, others find it inconvenient. It's the same silence. Some people find peace, others feel abandoned. It's the same long day. Some enjoy it, others find it burdensome. So, what is the ultimate source of suffering? It's from thought. And sadly, most of these thoughts aren't based on anything truly clear, but are merely interpretations pieced together from imagination. Someone doesn't reply to a message, and we assume they're angry. A task hasn't yielded results, and we assume failure is near. We might think these are natural reflexes, preparing us to respond. But in reality, they are invisible knives, slowly carving away at our inner peace day by day. In the rushing currents of life, people often want to brace themselves and fight against the flow. But sometimes, if we simply learn to let go and float with it mindfully, we'll discover that we don't need to struggle so hard to live. There are things we can't control, people we can't fully understand, and outcomes not within our grasp. Yet, what we can always do is choose how we think, how we react, how we view life. In ancient scriptures, the Buddha once said, "Like a falling leaf, no one can stop it." If the human mind does not know how to tame itself, it will drift along with the winds of suffering, unknowingly. So if today you feel your heart adrift and unsteady, please pause for a moment. Look up at the blue sky. You'll see that even the clouds sometimes drift aimlessly, just like us. But then the wind will guide them back on course. The mind is the same. If you just stop resisting, stop overthinking, stop worrying too much about what hasn't happened, your mind will naturally return to its inherent stillness, amidst the myriad thoughts jostling in your head. Try closing your eyes, taking a deep breath, and whispering to yourself, "Everything will be okay." Because within you, there's always a tranquil stream, just waiting for you to return and listen. One late afternoon, as the gentle sunset cast its light over rooftops and trees, perhaps you, like many others, had just sat down at the dinner table when thoughts began to crowd in. The rice hasn't even cooled, but your mind has already rushed back to the argument from the morning. The person across from you is no longer there, but in your mind, the conversation is still unfolding. You're replaying words you didn't get to say, debating in silence, constructing an entire scenario that only exists in your imagination. And then you sigh, feeling empty and tired inside. The meal is no longer enjoyable. Your mind is no longer at peace. Have you ever wondered why this happens? Why can a mere thought make our heart feel as heavy as if carrying the entire sky? Because the human mind is inherently like a lake. A thought arises, and ripples spread everywhere. Each time you recall, reanalyze, reinterpret, you're adding another layer of ripples. And those waves not only blur the stillness, but also prevent you from seeing the reality unfolding before your eyes. The warm bowl of rice, your loved ones sitting beside you, the gentle evening light falling through the doorway. In Buddhist teachings, this is called false thought. When the mind gets entangled in unreal, unnecessary thoughts that aren't present in the moment, that is false thought. And false thought is the root of suffering. The Buddha once taught that an unsettled mind is bound by things that aren't real. A person eating, but whose mind is stuck in the past or projected into the future, is no different from someone daydreaming. They are not truly living in each moment. Thought itself isn't the enemy. But when we let our mind chase after endless streams of interpretation, ceaseless analysis, fabricating unrealities, then thought becomes a chain binding the soul. Modern psychology also has a very similar understanding. The more we overthink, the more energy our brain consumes, leading to bodily fatigue and psychological instability. People who frequently overthink often easily fall into anxiety, stress, insomnia, and depression. They live in an inner world that is largely self-created, and then they themselves get drowned in it. Try to recall. How many times have you convinced yourself someone hates you just because of a fleeting glance? How many times have you assumed others are speaking ill of you behind your back just because they were silent? And how many times have you wasted an entire day just picturing things that might never happen? It is precisely through overthinking that you sow sorrow into your heart. The Buddha taught that the mind is the root, and phenomena are the branches. If the mind is unattached, all phenomena will likewise dissolve. When we no longer cling to interpretations, when the mind no longer chases after false thoughts, then afflictions will have no ground to sprout. Just like a garden without water, seeds cannot grow. And the mind is the same. If we don't water our minds with useless thoughts, if we don't fertilize invisible assumptions, then suffering will gradually diminish. There's a very simple story from the Buddhist teachings of spiritual response that a Zen master once shared. A man walking through a forest saw a small snake by the path. Frightened, he quickly recoiled, but upon closer inspection in the sunlight, he realized it was just an old rope. At that moment, he laughed, and all his fear vanished. This short story is enough to show that much suffering in this life comes from us thinking it's a snake, when in reality, it's just a harmless rope. We suffer not because of the event itself, but because of how we interpret it. Therefore, if you are hurting, if you are tired, if you feel your mind disturbed by things past or yet to come, gently pause. Take a deep breath. Feel your own breath. Place your hand on your chest and ask yourself, am I truly living in this moment or merely resting? Is it possible that while we exist, we are losing ourselves in a labyrinth of unreal notions? No one forbids us from thinking. But the Buddha taught us to think with mindfulness, to think about what is right, necessary, and beneficial for the peace of our body and mind. For everything else, let all streams of thought flow by like clouds across the sky. Don't grasp them, don't resist them. Just breathe. Just be aware. Just like a lake, when no one throws stones into it, the water naturally settles. The human mind is the same. When you stop casting into it assumptions, interpretations, past events, and future worries, your mind will return to its inherent stillness. And in that stillness, you will find something more precious than anything else: inner peace. You may be very tired, lost amidst 100 worries, but please don't forget that you can always return to yourself right now. You don't need to wait until tomorrow. You don't need to wait until everything settles down. You just need to realize that it's not the external world that makes you suffer, but your own incessant thoughts within, and you have the power to stop. You can choose serenity. You can choose not to overthink. Your mind will be at peace when you cease trying to be right all the time. Life will be less painful when you learn to let go of a few unnecessary thoughts. Just sit still for a moment. Listen to your gentle breath. Watch the afternoon sun fall through the window. Don't need to do anything. Don't need to try to understand everything. Just be present, and you will realize that everything is enough, because you have returned to yourself, to the only place free from false thoughts. The mind is at peace when you realize that you don't need to chase after things beyond your reach. You just need to live fully in each moment, like a blossoming flower, like flowing water, like clouds drifting across the sky, without clinging, without struggling. And in that moment, the light from within you will naturally radiate. You will find yourself no longer alone in this life, for mindfulness illuminates the path. Because you have chosen to return, not to understand everything, but to see that by thinking less, overthinking less, the mind will suffer less. Life will be lighter, and light will gradually emerge from a place you'd never expected. Do you ever sit in silence, take a soft breath, and then suddenly feel unnamed worries welling up within your heart? A small sound outside the door can make your mind uneasy. An unanswered message can leave you pondering all day long. In this busy life, we carry so many burdens without realizing it. The burden of a future yet to come, the burden of a past not yet released, and the burden of things that might not even happen. And the more we think, the more we worry, the more we overthink, the more uneasy we feel, as if we are losing ourselves in a storm of our own making. Once, a farmer sought out the Buddha on a peaceful morning. An anxious expression was clearly visible on his face. He approached the exalted one, bowed respectfully, and sat down with a troubled look. He said that his life was chaotic and full of afflictions. His buffalo was sick. This year's harvest was poor. His children were disobedient. His neighbors were often envious. His wife complained all day long, and his health was steadily declining. Every day, he constantly worried and fretted about how to live better, how to make everything go as he wished, how to no longer suffer as he was. After listening, the Buddha smiled gently. He didn't give a sermon or offer any profound advice. He simply said to the farmer very softly, "I cannot help you eliminate all those things, for such is life. But I can help you suffer less because of them." The farmer was bewildered. He had imagined that the Buddha would teach him how to make everything go smoothly, how to get rich, how to live peacefully, how to change his circumstances. But no, the Buddha only spoke about suffering less. Then he told the farmer about the 21 worries of human life. Everyone has at least 21 worries. Worries about work, about family, about health, about parents, about children. Worries about not having enough money. Worries about having money, but not feeling secure. Worries about not being in love. worries about being in love, worries about fear of losing the one he loved. And in addition, worries about reputation, age, death, betrayal, gossip, illness, loneliness, things that haven't happened yet, and even worries about having too many things to worry about. The Buddha said, all sentient beings have worries. Even those on the spiritual path once had worries. But the difference is that awakened individuals don't allow themselves to get lost in those streams of thought. They identify the worry, observe it like a cloud drifting across the sky, and then let it pass. That is the difference between an awakened person and someone still lost in delusion in life. It's not that awakened people have no worries at all, but that they don't suffer because of them, because they understand that some things we can change, we should change, and some things we cannot change, we learn to let go. Upon hearing this, the farmer felt as if a gentle, cool breeze had swept through his soul. His buffalo was still sick. His harvest hadn't improved, and his children were still stubborn. But the difference was that he no longer feared them. He began to feel his heart soften. A serene acceptance arose within him, not resignation, but a deep understanding that such is the nature of life. Imperfect, yet still worth living. Not always smooth, but still with beautiful moments to smile about. As long as we are alive, worries are unavoidable. But if we live letting worries control our mind, then we are no longer free. Worry is like a wave. If we keep chasing each one, we will be exhausted. Only when we stop and stand firm in the stillness of the mind will the waves pass, and the sea will return to its inherent peace. Awakening is looking directly at our worries without being swept away by them. It is knowing full well that our heart is uneasy, but not allowing the mind to get tangled in additional imaginings. For most of the suffering in our hearts doesn't come from reality, but from the stories we tell ourselves about that reality. We often ask, what if something bad happens? But the more important question is, if it hasn't happened yet, why must we suffer now? A person living in mindfulness understands that any worry can be calmed if we know how to return to our breath, return to the present moment. Just as water is stirred turbid by the wind, our mind becomes muddied by streams of thought, hypothetical scenarios of our own creation. But if we sit still, breathe gently, and let everything settle, we will see our pure nature. That is a mind not stained by fear, not obscured by false thoughts. The story of the farmer meeting the Buddha is a gentle reminder that no one can eliminate all the uncertainties in your life, but you can learn not to be drowned by them. You can learn to stand firm and serene amidst the storm of thoughts by understanding that not all worries are real. Often, they're just passing clouds, while you are the vast sky. We cannot live without worrying. But what's important is how we choose to live with those thoughts. We can let them knock us down, or we can smile and watch them like rain passing by a window. The Buddha taught that it is mindfulness itself that is the bridge carrying us from the shore of anxiety to the haven of peace. If today you are worried, overthinking, or tormenting yourself with unclear things, try sitting down for a moment. Instead of asking, "How do I stop worrying?" ask your heart what it truly needs. Perhaps your mind just needs a quiet moment, a deep breath, a hug from your own self, a self-reassurance that all will pass. Life always operates according to the law of impermanence. Worries are the same. They come and go. What remains is how you face them. When you no longer try to chase away worries, nor feed them, you will realize your mind is vast enough to embrace all uneasiness and then serenely let go. And in that moment, perhaps you will hear a very soft, gentle sound echoing in your heart. I am enough. I don't need to think any further. I am living, and that is enough. That is the first step toward inner freedom, the door opening to a world no longer filled with clouds of worry, but a vast, clear blue sky welcoming the light of awakening. Has it ever happened that just because a message went unanswered, your entire day became heavy? You look at your phone screen, see the seen notification lying there silently, with no reply. And then, in that brief moment, your mind begins to weave endless stories. Is that person angry with me? Or did I say something wrong? No. Or perhaps they have an issue with me, but don't want to say it directly. And just like that, from a harmless void, you weave a sky of unease within your heart. The modern human mind is like a ceaselessly analyzing machine. Each moment that passes, it not only receives, but also interprets, labels, analyzes, imagines, speculates. Instead of seeing things as they are, we constantly fall into the state of creating meaning for everything, especially when things don't go as expected. The Buddha taught that the mind is the root of all phenomena. When the mind goes astray, everything becomes distorted. It is because the mind is not tamed, not illuminated by mindfulness, that we allow unfounded imaginings to infiltrate, causing our heart to churn. Once, a disciple asked the Buddha, "Exalted One, I often feel sad and angry because others don't act as I wish. I think about them a lot, about their actions, and I cannot stop myself from thinking." The Buddha smiled and replied, Have you ever seen a person stand before a rock and scold it? No matter how much they scold, the rock remains silent, for it has no discriminating mind, no false thoughts. But humans, because they have a mind, give rise to false thoughts. And those false thoughts are precisely the root of suffering. We suffer not because of reality, but because of the story our mind fabricates about reality. An indifferent glance, a casual remark, an unintentional silence. If we receive them with mindfulness, everything is simply as it is. But once the mind clings, once the mind becomes a judge, then even the smallest detail turns into a needle piercing our heart. Imagine, on a rainy day, you see a leaf fall. If you simply see it as a falling leaf, you will feel peace. But if you interpret it as the leaf falling is like my own life withering away, you automatically assign a melancholic meaning to the leaf, and your emotions follow suit. It is this labeling, this act of our mind becoming the storyteller for everything around us, that drags us deep into resentment. The Buddha taught about the nature of emptiness. All phenomena lack inherent, fixed nature. They are merely aggregates of causes and conditions. When conditions converge, they form. When conditions disperse, they cease. If we can look at life with eyes that see things as they truly are, without adding thoughts, without interpreting through the desires of the ego, then our heart will be like a still lake. But we, living in this noisy era, have unconsciously turned ourselves into directors in our minds. We write scripts, assigning villainous roles to this person, pitiful characters to ourselves, and live in that world full of tragedy, forgetting that it's only a mental construct, not reality. Do you notice that there are times you suffer for no clear reason, just because you think, perhaps others are not satisfied with me? Maybe they have changed. Surely I did something wrong. And those, perhaps, maybe, surely, are like dark clouds swirling in your heart, even though the sky outside is clear. When the mind becomes the judge of everything, you are acting as the judge of your own life, but a judge who is always suspicious, anxious, and uneasy. You hold the gavel, condemning yourself and others, even though no actual trial is taking place. The Buddha taught us to return to our breath. When the mind starts to follow streams of interpretation, stop, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, is this real? Or is it just my imagination? That is the moment of mindfulness where you pull your mind back to reality, no longer drifting in your own dream. Practice observing your mind gently. When a negative thought arises, don't try to chase it away, nor feed it. Just smile and recognize that your mind is overthinking. Like a cloud passing across the sky, it comes and goes, leaving no trace, unless you try to hold on to it. A Zen master once said, "When you stop adding extra details, the truth will reveal itself, and the truth is always simple." But our suffering comes from not accepting simplicity. We want everything to have a reason, to align with our wishes, to satisfy our understanding. When there's no answer, we create an answer for ourselves. And sometimes, that very answer is the greatest pain. So instead of trying to analyze why someone didn't text back, you can choose to rest. Instead of imagining what they think of you, return to your true feelings. Instead of chasing after a series of what if and maybe scenarios, return to what is present. Your heartbeat, your breath, yourself in this very moment. When you live with a clear mind, you will realize that most of your suffering doesn't come from reality, but from your mind. The one that specializes in conjuring phantoms in thick mist. But when the light of mindfulness is ignited, the phantoms will vanish as if they never existed. You don't need to control everything. You just need to control your mind. Don't let it wander in places that don't exist. Don't let your mind become a harsh judge. Let your mind be a gentle, soft companion, accompanying you through every moment of life. Sometimes, living peacefully doesn't come from having all the answers, but from accepting that you don't need to know everything. You don't need to understand everything. You just need enough mindfulness not to be swept away by unreal things. Each time your mind begins to overthink, remind yourself, this is a mental construct, not reality. And then gently return to your breath, to your steps, to the light shining within your heart. Because when you think less, overthink less, you will suffer less. And in that stillness, you will hear the true voice of your heart. Not the clamor of imagined stories, but the sound of presence, of peace, of unconditional love. Be like a stream deep in the forest, flowing silently, without haste, without judgment. No matter who comes or goes, whether there's the sound of wind or forest birds, it remains clear, and gentle. If you know how to stop and listen to life as the stream listens to the forest, everything will become much better. And in the moment, you no longer need to understand everything. You will understand the deepest truth. Peace doesn't come from everything being satisfactorily explained, but from you no longer being pulled away by your thoughts. The light is always there. You just need to stop creating darkness. Have you ever sat still, yet felt your heart like a raging river? Sat in a silent room, but heard hundreds of voices, thousands of endless interpretations echoing in your head? Just a fleeting glance, an incomplete remark from someone can make you ponder endlessly. You feel like you're standing at a crossroads, each thought pulling you in a different direction, each assumption making you pause and hesitate. And then, in the end, you just feel tired, confused, unsure of what is real and what is imagined. In those moments, you only wish you could turn off all thoughts, return to the pure silence within. But turning off thoughts is not easy. The more you try to stop it, the more your mind races. The more you try to control it, the more it struggles. The Buddha once said, "The mind is like a monkey, thoughts like a wild horse, always jumping and running wildly everywhere." That is the natural state of an untrained mind. And to transform it, what is needed is not suppression or resistance, but acknowledging it with all gentleness and love. Meditation is the path back to that stillness, not to force the mind to be quiet, but to clearly see that behind those ceaseless streams of thought, there is still a serene space waiting for you to reside in. That space is present in every breath. Try to pause for a moment. You don't need to brace yourself, don't need to try too hard. Just sit down gently, like a friend embracing yourself. Close your eyes, feel your feet on the ground, your spine from like a pine tree in the wind. And then bring your attention back to your breath, the in-breath, the out-breath. You don't need to control your breath, nor force your mind to concentrate. Just follow your breath like someone standing by the roadside, watching cars go by, without chasing after any of them. A thought comes, you know it. It passes, you still know it, without resisting, without clinging, without chasing. Simply knowing. That awareness is the foundation of mindfulness. The Buddha called mindfulness the light that illuminates all phenomena. With mindfulness, we are no longer swept away by thoughts. We clearly know, my mind is sad, or I am worried. This is just an interpretation, not necessarily the truth. Thanks to this, we don't fall into the trap of imagination, no longer suffering over things that haven't happened. Just as when you drink a cup of tea, if your mind is present, you will feel the warmth spreading on your tongue, the aroma wafting through your nose, the gentleness touching your heart. But if your mind is constantly worrying about yesterday, about tomorrow, then no matter how fragrant the tea, it cannot save your mind from agitation. The Buddha once taught, live in the present moment, for that is the only place where life truly happens. Try practicing this even in the smallest things. When washing dishes, don't see it as a mundane chore. Wash dishes as if you were caring for yourself. Feel the cool water flowing over your hands, the clean dish, and your mind, too, is cleansed of its impurities. When walking, don't just walk with your feet. Walk with your whole heart, with each step clearly aware. I am walking on the earth. I am alive, Each moment like this is each time you bring yourself back to true life. And each time you return is each time you move away from the trap of overthinking. You don't need to wait until your mind is completely still. Just a little mindfulness is enough to lighten your heart. A Zen master once said that meditation is not about making the mind silent, but about becoming still enough to hear what your mind is saying. When you hear that voice, not to argue with it or dismiss it, but to smile and say, "I see you, thought, but I am not you. I am simply watching you pass by like a cloud in the sky." And then you will see something truly wondrous. When you no longer resist thoughts, they will gradually dissipate on their own. Just as a cloud not pushed by the wind will naturally drift by. Your mind then, though not entirely empty, becomes clear. Though not absolutely still, it is deeply peaceful. You don't need to become a Zen master to find peace. Just spending a few minutes each day returning to your breath, to your steps, to a cup of tea or a meal with mindfulness is enough to nurture the seed of awakening within. And in times when life makes you falter, you will know how to sit with yourself. No need to seek comfort from anyone. No need to run from emotions. Just sit down, close your eyes, breathe in, breathe out, and realize that everything will pass. But I am still here, with this breath, with this heart, with a soul learning to let go, to become lighter. Amidst life's busyness, give yourself the opportunity to slow down, to pause for a moment, to see the flowers blooming, the birds singing. And you, present here, with all of life. When you return to the present moment, you not only stop overthinking, but also open a door. There lies stillness, love, and light shining from your very heart. You can start today. No need for many reasons. No need to wait for convenient circumstances. You just need to choose to sit still for a few minutes each day, breathe, and smile. Each peaceful breath you sow today will blossom into a lotus flower in your heart tomorrow morning. Have you ever sat alone, gazing at the distant sky, hearing the rustling of leaves in the wind, and suddenly felt your mind, too, stirred like those leaves? Even when nothing specific is happening, your heart feels as if hundreds of thoughts are piling up on top of each other. Sometimes you feel lonely, sometimes afraid, then angry, blaming others or yourself. The more you think, the more it hurts. The more you overthink, the more uneasy you feel. And strangely enough, most of that suffering doesn't come from present reality, but from things we imagine. In Buddhist scriptures, there is a very simple yet profound teaching. Don't readily believe everything you think. That statement sounds paradoxical at first, because all this time we have believed that thought is an indispensable part of life. But the truth is, not every thought reflects reality. The human mind is inherently complex. It loves to create scenarios, weave stories, cling to fears, and label everything. In those moments, if we are not mindful enough to recognize this, we ourselves become victims of the very thoughts we create. There's a famous old Zen story. One day, a scholar visited a renowned Zen master. The scholar was very confident in his knowledge, constantly eloquently speaking at length about philosophy, religion, and all he had learned. The Zen master invited him to drink tea. When the cup was full, the Zen master kept pouring, causing the tea to overflow and wet the table. The scholar was startled and asked, "Don't you see the cup is already full?" The Zen master smiled and replied, "Just like your mind, it is too full of thoughts, judgments, and personal opinions. How can I pour anything new into it?" That story is gentle, yet it makes the listener pause and reflect on themselves. How many times in life have we allowed our mind's cup to overflow with subjective thoughts? How many times have we written painful scripts for ourselves just because of a glance or an ambiguous remark from someone else? An unanswered message immediately turns into suspicion. A gentle rejection turns into a feeling of not being loved. The pain, therefore, doesn't come from someone hurting us, but from our own interpretation of it. The mind has the power to create both heaven and hell. If we don't know how to stop at the right time, thoughts will drag us into their own vortex. When we think too much, we lose the present. When we believe everything we think, we lose the truth. And when we don't know how to stop, we will no longer distinguish between real suffering and phantoms created by the mind. Just like a still lake, it only reflects clearly when there are no ripples. The human mind is the same. Only when it is still can we clearly see the true nature of things. But to achieve that stillness is not by forcing the mind to stop thinking, but by learning to recognize when the mind starts over-elaborating and knowing when to stop. That is awakening. You are watching on the Fat Phap Lin Ung channel. The Buddha taught that all phenomena are impermanent. No thought is immutable, and no emotion lasts forever. They come and go like clouds drifting across the sky. What prevents clouds from dissipating is our clinging to them, analyzing them, holding on to them. If we know to stand still and observe, the clouds will drift by themselves. If we know to temporarily set aside tangled thoughts, and the mind will naturally become clear. There is a subtle wonder. When we stop believing everything we think, a new space will open in our heart. That space is not bound by right or wrong, not entangled by expectations or fears. It is a space of stillness where the mind can rest and heal. At that time, we don't need to try to understand everything, don't need to rationalize everything. We just need to return to our breath, to our steps, to a blossoming flower in the garden, or the distant ringing of a bell. A person who once suffered from severe depression shared that what pulled her out of the deep abyss was not profound psychological therapy or advice from others, but one afternoon when she sat silently watching the sun set behind the mountains. In that moment, her mind rested, no longer clamoring for explanations, and just like that, a glimmer of light shone into her mind. Healing begins the moment we stop trying to force the mind to be right, to understand, to know everything. Because not everything we think is true. Not everything the mind creates accurately reflects circumstances. Therefore, learn to sit still when your heart is stormy. Breathe gently when your mind is troubled. Let stillness guide you inward. Remember that we are not what we think, nor are we the roles that the mind assigns us. We are the one quietly observing all of that, the one awakening from a long dream of speculation. If today you are hurting over something unclear, If you are confused by what you think and what you feel, please don't readily believe everything. Let your mind rest a little. Find a quiet place. Listen to the birds sing, or look at the starry sky. And you will realize that even the greatest sufferings are just passing clouds against the vast sky of consciousness. Trust that within you there is a very vast sky. That sky is not stirred by the storms of thought. That sky always shines, no matter how clouded your mind might be. If you just agree to stop, agree to let go of interpretations, agree to look deeper within, you will see that everything will become much lighter. Then one day, you will no longer panic because of what you think. You will know how to smile when a painful thought arises, because you will understand it is just a small cloud drifting by, not the sky. You will know when to stop, how to return to yourself, how to keep your mind still. And it is in that stillness that true happiness begins. My dear friend, if your mind today is burdened with 100 tangled worries, close your eyes for a moment. Breathe in deeply. Breathe out softly. Just let your breath guide you back to the miraculous life in the present. You don't need to understand everything, nor do you need to do anything at all. Just sit still and realize that you are not what you think. You are the one awakening, gently releasing each bond that your mind has quietly created during long, sleepless nights. All suffering can be overcome if we know how to stop at the right time. And freedom begins not from somewhere far away, but from this very moment, the moment we stop believing the thoughts that cause us pain. There are days when we leave home with a yearning to find a truly quiet, peaceful place, a sparsely populated cafe, a thin forest grove, or a small temple nestled halfway up a mountain. We walk and walk endlessly, hoping to find a haven of peace for our troubled soul. Yet, no matter where we are, no matter how long we've sat, how deeply we've closed our eyes, we still feel restless and uneasy. Could it be that some waves don't arise from the wind, but from the human heart itself? Could it be that some sorrows don't originate from the world, but from what we harbor within? And could it be that we keep searching for something that has, in fact, never left us? Only we've forgotten how to recognize it? Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "Peace is not an external thing. Peace is a choice." That teaching is like a drop of water flowing into the barren land of the soul, gentle and full of awakening. We often think that only when work pressure lessens, when children are obedient, when our partner understands, when society is no longer competitive, can we live peacefully. But life is never that simple, is it? Those conditions are like winds that change daily. If we keep waiting for the wind to settle, will the boat of our mind ever be allowed to drift freely? A woman recounted that after many years enduring a tumultuous marriage, she decided to leave everything. She went to live in a monastery in Lam Dong. Amidst pine forests, mist, and the sound of bells, she thought she would find the peace she had yearned for so many years. But night after night, she would wake up startled. Old memories still resurfaced, unhealed wounds still bled silently. It was then that she realized that even if she changed her scenery, changed people, changed her life. If her mind was not yet at peace, every place remained a precarious resting place. People say our true home is not a place, but where our mind finds refuge. The grandest pagoda won't help us find serenity if the mind keeps wandering. The deepest forest won't help us awaken if the heart is still disturbed. Wherever our mind is, that is where our world is. If the mind is a battlefield, even amidst a field of flowers, we will still perceive bloodshed. If the mind is a cool spring, then even in a bustling city, we can still hear the clear singing of birds. A young novice monk asked a Zen master, "Master, how can I find peace in this chaotic life?" The Zen master smiled and did not answer. He led the novice monk through a crowded market. Vendors and buyers. The noisy clamor resounded. The master said nothing, just sat down by the roadside, closed his eyes, breathed steadily, and abode in mindfulness. A moment later, he opened his eyes and asked, "Do you hear anything?" The novice monk was bewildered. "I hear vendors shouting, car horns, people arguing." The Zen master nodded gently. "And I only hear the sound of my own breath." Peace, it turns out, requires no conditions. It only needs a return to ourselves, to this very moment, without craving, without judgment, without adding stories to what has happened. We do not suffer because of what is. We suffer because we don't accept it. We want to change it. We interpret it into a long, agonizing chain of misfortunes. And then we lose the peace that is present. The Buddha taught, a mind unattached to anything is peace. The mind is like a lake. When the wind blows, waves arise. But if we know to sit still, to breathe, to observe, then the waves will also settle. The lake will return to its flatness, reflecting the entire sky. Our suffering comes from constantly seeking peace in unstable things. Other people, work, money, relationships. While true peace comes from a very familiar place that is often forgotten, our own mind. Imagine an early morning. You sit in the shade of a tree, the first light of day filtering through the leaves, birds chirping melodically, the scent of wildflowers carried on a gentle breeze. Everything is so gentle, but are you truly peaceful? If your mind is tangled with an argument from yesterday, with hurtful words, or with an unending worry, nature might be beautiful, circumstances might be ideal, but if in your heart is a storm, then even sitting in paradise, you will still experience suffering. Conversely, someone living in the world, facing all kinds of gossip and slander every day, can still live a life as light as a gentle breeze if they possess mindfulness and awakening. Such a person knows that everything arises from conditions, comes and goes, and nothing lasts forever. They know how to let go of interpretations and attachments. They do not allow their mind to be dragged by anger, resentment, or worry. Their soul isn't manipulated by circumstances. That is true freedom. That is peace amidst life. Peace is not the absence of noise, but finding stillness within yourself amidst the noise. Peace is not the absence of turmoil, but the ability to maintain clear insight amidst turmoil without being swept away. Just like a boat that knows how to steer will not capsize no matter how strong the current. Sometimes we think that to find peace, we must let go of everything. Leave the city for the countryside, abandon a busy life, sever complicated relationships. But the Buddha never taught us to run away. He taught us to look deeply to see that all afflictions arise from the mind, and all liberation also comes from the mind. If we do not change our mind, then no matter where we are, we will carry that suffering with us. But if the mind is at peace, then amidst 100,000 changes, we can still smile. In the discourse on the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the Buddha taught about abiding in the present by observing the body, feelings, and phenomena. That is a method to help us live fully in this moment, not chasing the past, not dreaming of the future, not letting interpretations lead our mind away from the truth. When the mind returns to the body, when the breath is recognized, when each emotion is embraced without judgment, that is when we are entering our true home. A home without walls, without a roof, without doors, yet completely safe, sheltering, and peaceful. No one can build that home for us. It is not on any map. It only appears when we are brave enough to look back at ourselves, when we are humble enough to admit that it's not others who make us uneasy, but that we grant them that power. When we let go of the need to control, reduce our expectations, then we don't need a long journey to come home. Let every morning be an opportunity to return. Return to your breath. Return to life. Return to see that peace has never left us. It just waits for us to be mindful enough to recognize it. Some birds only sing in the early morning. Some flowers only bloom when the weather is cool. And some truths only appear when the mind is still enough. Peace doesn't come from going far, but from going deep. Not from going to a place, but from coming to oneself. One who knows how to return will no longer wander. One who knows mindfulness will no longer fear. One who knows awakening will no longer be lost in life. And my friend, you can be that person too. Just sit down gently today. Listen to your breath. Smile at your mind. Gently. You don't need to try too hard. Just as clouds dissipate when the wind blows, and water clarifies when no one stirs it, you too will realize that what you've been searching for all along has actually always been there, within this heart full of wounds, yet also full of the capacity to heal. When the mind is at peace, the scenery will be at peace. When people are at peace, life will be gentle. Peace is not a gift bestowed, but an awakening from within. If you just return, you will see you don't need to go anywhere. You are already home. A young woman once shared that she often suffered from insomnia. Every night, her mind would start worrying. I wonder if my boss will scold me at work tomorrow. I wonder if my colleague misunderstood what I said today. I wonder if that person still loves me. And so, in the silent darkness, her mind, like a tireless director, wrote scripts full of tragedy. The young woman didn't realize that she didn't need enemies outside, because the true enemy lay within her own uncontrolled thoughts. The Buddha taught that a wise person is one who knows how to stop, how to look deeply into reality, not letting the mind lead them to wander into the realm of fantasy. If the mind is not at peace, any scenery becomes a stormy downpour. If the mind is agitated, even sitting in a place of peace the heart will churn with waves. And those waves don't come from the external sea, but from the ocean of false thoughts within consciousness. In reality, creating scenarios for what hasn't happened is a habit of self-preservation. It's like the armor we wear, ready in case something bad happens, so we're mentally prepared. But the paradox is, the more we defend, the more exhausted our mind becomes. The more we pre-think, the more uneasy our heart feels. Do you realize that most of the things we fear and imagine ultimately never happen? So, is it worth letting these unreal things steal your true peace in the present moment? Imagine your mind as a small wound. If you leave it alone and care for it gently with mindfulness, it will heal itself. But if you keep scratching it, touching it, constantly thinking about it, it will bleed, get infected, and hurt many times more. Thoughts are the same. If a worry is illuminated by the light of awakening, by the question, is this truly real yet? Then it will gently dissipate like clouds in the sky. But if you let your mind write a tragic script and then believe what you've imagined, you will get stuck in it with no way out. I remember once my teacher told a story about a Buddhist practitioner who often lived in anxiety. She had a habit. Whenever her child came home late from work, she would immediately imagine all sorts of things. Surely they had an accident. Maybe someone harmed them. I wonder if they lost their job. And so on. Her mind not only created one scenario, but an entire multi-episode film. And the painful thing was, she believed it as if it were reality. She lived in fear for many years. My teacher gently asked her, "Couldn't you choose a different scenario? Like your child is busy helping someone, or simply stuck in traffic?" That question startled her, because it was true. No one forces us to choose the worst-case scenario. That is a choice of our own mind. If you are sitting alone and suddenly feel your heart heavy with scenarios that haven't happened yet, try to gently stop. Place a hand on your chest. Feel your heartbeat. That beat is life. It is the present. Then breathe in deeply, breathe out slowly, and ask your heart, is this worth it? If what you fear hasn't actually happened, is it worth losing the present moment just for an image in your head? We cannot stop the wind from blowing, but we can choose to furl our sails. We cannot stop thoughts from coming, but we can choose not to hold on to them. The Buddha once said, "The mind is like a monkey swinging from branch to branch, like a wild horse running rampant." A practitioner is one who knows how to pull the reins, how to sit still, how to stop. Stop to see how peaceful reality truly is. Stop to avoid sowing suffering for yourself. One of the most effective practices to bring the mind back to the present is the breath. The breath is the bridge connecting body and mind. When you are aware of your breath, you are here, no longer drifting in the future. Breathing in, you know you are breathing in. Breathing out, you know you are breathing out. Repeat this a few times, and the mind will calm down, like a lake ceasing its ripples. My dear friend, this life is already difficult enough. Please don't make it heavier with things that haven't happened yet. Don't become the script writer for unreal tragedies. Let your heart be as light as an autumn breeze. Let your eyes see life like a freshly bloomed flower. Let your mind be as peaceful as water after the rain. Each day that passes, if you just stop a few times, take a few deep breaths, and ask your heart, is this real? Is this worth it? Then that is already an awakening. We cannot control tomorrow, but we can choose not to lose today. We don't know what will happen, but we have the right not to write terrible things in our heads. We don't need to be strong as steel, just soft as water, embracing ourselves with gentleness, understanding, and forgiveness. When the mind stops writing scripts for what hasn't happened, the heart will lighten like a cloud lingering in the blue sky. When you dare to live truly in the present moment, you will see that suffering doesn't come from circumstances, but from how your mind perceives and interprets everything. Let your mind rest. Let your heart let go. Try to imagine if you didn't think anything more, didn't imagine anything more, didn't fear anything yet to come, what would you be like? Perhaps you would be surprised to find yourself wonderfully peaceful. A peace without reason, a serenity independent of conditions. That is the reward of one who knows how to stop, how to return to oneself. And right now, you can practice that. Close your eyes for a moment. Place your hand on your heart. Breathe in deeply. Breathe out slowly. Feel the warmth from your palm spreading into your heart. Whisper to yourself, I am here. I am safe. I don't need to fear what hasn't happened. A flower doesn't need to know if it will rain or shine tomorrow. It just needs to bloom fully in this moment. You are the same. You don't need to predict the future to be at peace. You just need to breathe, just need to be present, just need to believe that in each breath, life is renewing itself. And if you have that belief, no matter what the world outside is like, your mind will be like a candle in a winter night, always radiating a gentle light. Today's lesson is not for you to stop worrying forever, but for you to realize that you can choose not to follow that stream of thought. You can choose to stop. And in that stopping, you will see that nothing is so urgent that you must sacrifice your peace. The sky is still blue, the clouds still drift, the flowers still bloom, and so do you. You can live lightly, serenely, and don't need to write any more scripts. You just need to return to embrace yourself and believe that everything will be okay. Because your mind is learning how to abide, learning how to stop hurting itself with unreal things. Beneath the ancient Bodhi tree, where the morning light gently illuminated the dew-covered ground, a woman sat silently. Her eyes were heavy with sorrow, her hair streaked with gray, and the wrinkles on her face seemed to encapsulate all the hidden sorrows of her life. She wasn't crying, but anyone looking at her could feel a storm raging within her heart. She had come to this small temple in the distant mountains to seek something. Perhaps serenity, perhaps comfort, or perhaps just a place to breathe out a sigh of relief. After years of bracing herself and enduring, upon meeting the abbot, she bowed deeply. Her trembling hands clasped together as if embracing all the suffering of her life into each breath. She spoke with a choked voice, saying she was utterly exhausted with life. She recounted the months of raising her children alone, the sacrifices no one acknowledged, the words from loved ones that hurt her and kept replaying in her mind. She feared the night because she couldn't sleep. She feared the morning because she had to brace herself again. But what pained her most was not the external hardships, but the thoughts in her mind, like a relentless knife, slowly but cruelly, cutting into her heart every day. The abbot listened to her very gently, without interrupting, without rushing to judge. He just sat there in silence, like a river without banks, letting her pour out all her inner turmoil and hidden resentments. When she fell silent, as if she had spoken to the very end of her exhaustion, the abbot smiled kindly and softly asked, "Have you listened to your own heart?" That question seemed simple, but it was like a bell ringing deep within the woman's heart. She had never stopped to listen to herself. For years, she had only listened to what others said about her, listened to her ex-husband's criticism, to her relatives' judgments, to comparisons from neighbors, and even to the voices in her head condemning herself. But to listen to her own heart, she had never done so. The abbot said, "A practitioner is not one who avoids the world. A practitioner is one who knows how to stop, to look inward, to clearly see the subtle movements within the mind, without chasing after them, without hating them, whether it's a strong wind or a raging wave. All are merely phenomena of the mind. Only by being silent can we truly see our own heart." The woman fell silent, a tear falling, no longer a tear of gnawing sadness, but a tear of awakening. For the first time in a very long time, she felt her heart lighten. Not because someone had removed her problems for her, but because she realized she could let go of them herself by ceasing to cling tightly to those endless streams of thought. There's one thing people often forget. Emotions themselves never cause suffering, but rather the way we think about those emotions does. A careless remark only hurts us if we hold on to it, replaying and reinterpreting it, thereby causing ourselves more pain. An undesirable situation only truly erodes our mind when we incessantly judge ourselves, blame others, and imagine all possible scenarios if things had gone differently. But life has no if only. Life only has now. And so does the mind. Only when we sit still, breathe deeply, touch our own pain, as if touching a crying child, without pushing it away, without shouting, only then does healing truly begin. She asked the abbot, "What should I do to think less, to hurt less like this?" The abbot pointed to the forest in front of them. The morning sun at that moment pierced through the leaves, illuminating each lingering drop of dew. He said, "Like this forest, they don't try to grow. They simply are. They accept the sun, they accept the rain, and they just grow. The mind is the same. Don't try to chase away thoughts, nor let them lead you. Just return to your breath. Feel this body sitting here. Live truly in the present moment, and gradually all afflictions will settle like a lake after the wind." The woman bowed her head, her heart filled with an inexpressible emotion. There were things she had heard in books, from others' words. But today, as her heart touched itself, the abbot's words were no longer just doctrine, but a light illuminating a dark corner of her soul that had long been covered in dust. Who among us will not, at some point, be like that woman? Perhaps not because of suffering from marriage, but perhaps from suffering from work, from children, from loneliness, or from an unnamed uneasiness. In such times, we tend to seek external solutions, blaming others, resenting life, or tormenting ourselves. but never asking what our heart truly needs, and never truly sitting down to listen to the deep sigh within our inner self. The Buddha taught, when the mind is at peace, the world is at peace. When we can listen to ourselves, when we stop interpreting and cease chasing after incessant thoughts, the world naturally becomes gentler. Serenity doesn't come from our life being perfect, but from us learning to live with imperfection, with an understanding and unresisting heart. If you are hearing these words with a tired mind, temporarily set aside everything you are doing. Breathe in deeply and breathe out slowly. Just that. No need to think anything. No need for right or wrong. No need to control. Allow yourself to be fully present in this moment, without haste, without needing to be perfect. Because right now, you deserve peace. You don't need to be a strong person. Don't need to pretend to be okay. You just need to be yourself, complete in your fragility, luminous even on dark days. And when you can listen to the voice within you, you will know that suffering has never been an enemy. It is a door, a teacher. It's the awakening bell that guides you back to yourself. Every morning when the sun rises, plants still stretch themselves to welcome the light. No matter how heavy the rain or strong the wind yesterday, you are the same. No matter what happened yesterday, today is still an opportunity for you to start anew, to let go of unnecessary things and return to the inner stillness. Peace is not far away. It's right within you, waiting to be heard and recognized. So, pause for a moment, sit with yourself, and whisper softly, I am still here, still breathing, still able to start anew. And that is enough. One afternoon, I sat by a small lake in a quiet forest, watching the still water reflect white clouds drifting by. A gentle breeze passed. The water rippled, then stilled again. Suddenly, a child ran up and threw a stone into the lake. Rings of water spread, the lake agitated, its reflection blurred. I suddenly remembered a Buddhist maxim. The mind is like a lake. The more you stir it, the murkier it becomes. A gentle reminder, seemingly simple, yet more profound than any lesson on serenity. We often live like that child, unconsciously throwing countless stones of anxiety, judgment, imagination, and overthinking into our hearts. Each thought passes like a breeze, but we cling to it, distort it, elaborate on it, making our inherently clear mind murky. How many times have you created your own sadness just because of someone's cold glance, an emotionless remark, or a casual nod? We interpret everything negatively, then harbor it in our hearts, becoming dejected, hurt, even resentful. But if you pause for a moment, look a little deeper, you'll see that perhaps that person is just tired. They don't hate you, nor do they look down on you. They are just living with their own suffering. No one lives without heavy days, and not all heavy feelings can be put into words. The Buddha once taught that to find peace of mind, one must learn not to label. A situation itself carries no inherent meaning. It is our interpretation that creates emotions. When we think less subjectively, when we stop imagining things that aren't necessarily true, our mind suffers less. In truth, the nature of all phenomena is as it is, but we constantly want it to be as we wish. From this arises false thought, and from false thought arises suffering. Do you remember the last time you were hurt, and why? Perhaps it was when you messaged someone and they didn't reply. You sat there thinking they no longer cared about you, then continued to imagine they were probably closer to someone else. And eventually, you harbored a wound in your heart, created by your own thoughts. But if you observe your mind, like observing a lake, you will clearly see that no one makes you suffer except the way you stir your own mind. Living mindfully is learning to stop stirring the lake of the mind. It is when an event happens, you do not rush to react. It is when someone passes without greeting you, you do not immediately think they are aloof, but simply smile gently. Perhaps they are tired. This is how you protect your own peace. Who would want to live all day in a state of mental tension because of things that are unreal, uncertain, or unnecessary? The Buddha taught that a practitioner is not one who avoids all afflictions, but one who knows how to keep the mind clear amidst afflictions. Keeping the mind clear means not labeling hastily, not overthinking without cause, not reacting defensively. That is, you do not let others or external circumstances determine your emotions. Keep your mind clear, like a still lake, so that even if a stone is thrown in, the ripples quickly dissipate, and the heart becomes clear again. When you practice living with a clear mind, you will find yourself more forgiving. Not because someone deserves forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. Forgiveness is not forgetting, but ceasing to carry it in your heart like a bleeding wound. Forgiveness is when you see the impermanent nature of all emotions, all actions. It is when you understand that everyone is on a journey of learning to love, including yourself. And then you will begin to look at life with gentler eyes. You will no longer ask yourself, why did they treat me that way? But gently think, perhaps they are hurting. You will no longer torment yourself with, am I not good enough? But smile and tell yourself, I am growing. You no longer want to prove yourself better than anyone, but simply want to live true to yourself. That is the sign of a soul that has touched peace. In one sermon, the Buddha told a story about a person shot by a poisonous arrow. Instead of immediately removing the arrow, the person demanded to know who shot it, why it was shot, from where it was shot, and what the arrow was made of. And while still preoccupied with finding out, the poison spread throughout the body. That story is an allegory for how we often overthink, clinging to what is unnecessary to know. And then, that very thing causes us more pain. If we simply face the pain, observe it without judgment, we can begin the healing journey. The mind doesn't need to know all the reasons to let go. The mind just needs to learn to accept the present as the present, without adding, without subtracting, without elaborating. Simply seeing clouds as clouds drifting across the sky, without clinging, without holding, without trying to understand why the clouds are drifting in that direction. Just seeing clouds as clouds, gently, and peace emerges. Someone once asked, how can I not react when I'm hurt? The answer is to pause for a moment, take a deep breath, and observe your mind churning. Don't immediately react. Don't rush to find reasons. Don't try to understand the other person. Instead, understand yourself. Ask yourself what you are feeling. When we turn inward, we will clearly see fear, loneliness, or the feeling of not being loved. Seeing them, we will understand that hurt doesn't come from others, but from unhealed wounds within ourselves. And no matter what your circumstances, there is always a bright space within your mind, waiting to be awakened. That is a place not swayed by anyone's words, not disturbed by a cold glance or indifferent silence. That is the light of mindfulness. That is the presence without judgment, without labeling, without interpretation. That is true freedom. If one day your mind is agitated by a trifle, return to your breath. If someone hurts you with an unintentional glance, close your eyes and ask yourself, is it truly worth losing my peace over that? If the answer is no, smile. You have just preserved the light within you. The Buddha never taught us to run away from the world, but he taught us to live in the world without letting the world lead our mind astray. Amidst all changes, if you can keep a clear mind, you have walked on the path of awakening. And now, as we conclude this part, I invite you to sit in silence for a moment. Close your eyes, breathe gently, and imagine your mind as a lake in the early morning. No more stones being thrown, no more ripples, just stillness, just the reflecting light of dawn. Let that light touch every wound in your heart, and believe that your mind can be that lake. Your mind can become clear again, if only you stop stirring it. As a day passes, have you ever sat quietly amidst the hustle and bustle of life and wondered why your heart remains so restless? Why can just a word, a glance, a casual message make your heart sink? There are days when we feel our hearts heavy like gray clouds just because someone doesn't understand us. A careless piece of gossip touches us. But do you know, when the mind is still, no matter how much the winds of life blow, they cannot shake a leaf that has already let go. One afternoon, I walked through a small market where street vendors laughed and chattered amidst the calls to buyers. An old woman sat in a corner, selling bundles of freshwater spinach. Suddenly, someone passing by uttered harsh words. "What kind of old vegetables are these? Even cows wouldn't eat them." The old woman just smiled, gently rewrapped her vegetables, didn't say a word, and offered another bundle to the customer. I saw in her eyes not resignation, but a strange understanding, a profound peace. As I left the market, that image lingered in my heart throughout the long afternoon. I suddenly thought, a person with a peaceful mind like that old woman, no matter what anyone says, does not allow their heart to be disturbed. Perhaps it's because they understand that inner stillness is more steadfast than anything external. The Buddha once taught that just as still water reflects the moon and stars, a serene mind clearly reflects its original face. When our heart is still like a lake without ripples, then harsh words, gossip, and undesirable things are like wind blowing across the surface of the water. They may create a few gentle ripples, but they cannot make the lake disappear. A wise person, according to the Buddha's words, does not need to argue, does not need to brace themselves to prove anything. Because peace does not lie in winning or losing, but in keeping the mind unmoved by winning or losing. Once, an old Zen master was unfairly cursed at. He just listened silently, without saying a word. When the other person finished cursing and angrily asked, "Did you hear what I said?" The Zen master calmly replied, If someone brings you a gift and you don't accept it, to whom does that gift belong? The other person replied, "It still belongs to the one who brought it." The Zen master smiled. "Exactly. The insults you just hurled at me, I do not accept them, so they still belong to you." That is the wisdom of a person whose mind is at peace. It's not that they don't know, not that they aren't hurt, but because they have chosen not to carry unnecessary things in their hearts. We may not be able to change others, nor stop the world's gossip, but we can choose how to react. When our mind is still agitated, we are easily swept into every controversy. But when the mind is firm, the storms outside are just like a breeze passing through our hair. Life is like that. It's never entirely as we wish. Some people will love us, and some will dislike us. Some will understand us, and some will always doubt and judge. But what's important is not what others think of us, but how we live with ourselves. In the middle-length discourses, the Buddha once taught that those who keep their minds serene and live with mindfulness will not be entangled by the world. That statement sounds simple, but practicing it requires daily training of the mind. Start with small things. When someone says something unpleasant, instead of reacting immediately, take a deep breath. When faced with something contrary to your wishes, instead of complaining, pause for a moment and ask yourself, is this worth taking away my peace? Those are the moments when we are sowing the seeds of inner peace. A peaceful mind is not one that doesn't know anger or sadness. A peaceful mind knows anger, but does not erupt in a thunderous rage. It knows sadness, but does not allow sorrow to completely invade the heart. A peaceful mind is like a garden that has storms, but flowers still bloom. Like a sky with dark clouds, but the moon still appears behind them. A peaceful mind is not about avoiding life, but being firm enough to live amidst life without being drowned. Do you remember the last time you felt your heart lighten? Perhaps it was sitting on the porch, listening to the rain fall, or closing your eyes in a moment of meditation, or simply letting go of something that could no longer be salvaged. That was the moment your mind touched stillness. And it is precisely such moments that truly heal deep, hidden wounds that words cannot soothe. I remember a friend once saying, "Before, just one critical remark would keep me awake all night. Now, no matter what people say, I just smile. It's not that I no longer have emotions, but that I have learned to return to myself." That friend had experienced much suffering. But after everything, what remained was not hatred, but a quiet smile, like a flower amidst rocks. A flower doesn't need anyone's recognition. It still blooms in its season. Our mind is the same. It doesn't need to brace itself for anyone to see it. If it is peaceful enough, light will naturally radiate. Sometimes, what makes us suffer is not grand matters, but that we overthink too much, interpret too deeply. A casual remark can lead us to imagine hundreds of scenarios. A distant attitude can lead us to paint thousands of reasons. And from there, we create wounds in our hearts. But if our mind is still, we will see that big problems can become small, and small problems can become nothing. Because events themselves have no meaning beyond the meaning we assign to them. Just as still water can reflect the moon, a still mind can see the true nature of all things. A wise person is not one of many words, but one who knows when to be silent. They do not need to argue to assert themselves, because they understand that arguments only increase afflictions. When the mind is firm, you don't need to win against anyone, because you have won against yourself. That victory is the most enduring. One who is unmoved by praise or criticism truly lives in freedom. If you are feeling your heart troubled, try once to sit down, close your eyes, and listen to your own breath. Breathe in deeply. You know you are alive. Breathe out softly. You know you are letting go. Let each breath guide you back to the peace within, a place where there is no one but you, where there are no words of criticism or praise, only your complete presence. That is what meditation is, the place where the mind returns to take refuge. Life will not stop because you are tired, nor will it become gentler because you wish it so. But you can be gentler with yourself. You can choose to live in a way that lessens your heart's suffering each day. Take slow, deliberate steps. Look deeply into everything you do. Listen carefully to everything you say. For peace does not lie far away, but right within each breath, each glance, each smile of yours. And if today you still find your heart uneasy, believe that as long as you still wish for your mind to be at peace, you have already taken a very long step on the path of awakening. Because peace does not come from changing the world, but from changing how we view the world. Each time you choose to let go of an argument, an interpretation, a reaction, you are moving closer to freedom. And then one day, you will realize that it's not life that has become easier, but your heart that has become stronger. Hold on to that belief like a small lamp in the night. Even if the wind blows, even if the darkness is thick, that lamp will still burn because you have not let go. When your mind is still enough, it will become a refuge for yourself amidst the storms of life. And then all big problems will become small, and all small problems will become nothing. Not because life has changed, but because you have changed. You are at peace. There are days when we are so tired, we don't want to talk to anyone, don't want to do anything, don't even want to think. We just want to be alone, truly quiet, truly still, to let the mind breathe. Yet, strangely, even when doing nothing, streams of ceaseless thoughts still swirl in our heads. Sometimes it's about yesterday. Sometimes it's about things yet to come. They are like waves endlessly crashing against the shore of consciousness, making our heart constantly filled with unnamed worries and confusion. In modern life, it seems people are always caught in the cycle of doing, thinking, achieving. Everyone wants a little more money, more connections, more success. But the more we want, the more we feel a sense of lack. The harder we try to cling, the more anxious and uneasy our mind becomes. In the whirlwind of desires and calculations, we lose the ability to listen to ourselves. We keep running, searching, striving, forgetting that sometimes true happiness lies not in having much, but in knowing when to stop. There's a story often told about a mountain climber. He carried a lot of baggage, thinking he needed enough food, water, tent, and equipment to confidently conquer the peak. But the further he went, the heavier the burden made him. His steps were heavy, his breath hurried. The climbers ahead of him only carried essentials. They walked lightly, freely. and ultimately were the ones who reached the destination first. The story sounds simple, but if we look deeply, we will see our own image in it. We carry too many expectations, too many plans, too many worries. We think that the more we accumulate, the more we prepare, the more certain we will be happy. But in reality, happiness is not a destination ahead, but a feeling of serenity with each step. Some things we think are necessary are actually burdens that make us tired. In a Dharma talk, Zen master Ajahn Chah said, "When the water settles, the dirt will fall, and the water will become clear." That statement is not just a metaphor, but a profound truth. Our mind is like water. If we constantly stir it with thoughts, judgments, desires, how can it be crystal clear and still? Only when we know how to stop, allow the mind to rest, to settle, will the dust of life, meaning false thoughts, afflictions, anger, and resentment, be able to fall away. Then wisdom will have a chance to manifest. Someone asked, "How do I know when to stop?" That question sounds practical, but it actually comes from a desire to control. Stopping in Buddhism is not a decision based on logical reasoning, but an act of relaxation, an inner freedom. It is when we are no longer driven by greed or fear. At that point, stopping happens naturally, without coercion, not an act of helpless surrender, but the result of profound awakening. Once, I met a middle-aged woman who came to ask my teacher for Dharma teachings. She had been a very successful businesswoman, with a luxurious house, car, and a complete family. But her mind was always empty, anxious, and uneasy. Even though she had achieved many things, she never felt she had enough. One day, she collapsed from exhaustion. After that incident, she decided to seek a different path. Sitting before the Zen master, she told her story with tear-reddened eyes. "I don't know what to do to stop suffering." The teacher just smiled, poured her a cup of tea, and said, "Sit down here, drink tea, and don't do anything at all." At first, it sounded simple, but for someone accustomed to a frantic pace of life, doing nothing at all was very difficult. Initially, she was very confused, constantly checking her watch, constantly thinking, her hands and feet restless. But after a few days, living in the meditation center, each morning, just sitting quietly in front of the flower garden, listening to the birds sing, watching the leaves fall, her mind began to calm down. She realized that doing nothing was actually the most profound therapy. Because when not caught up in doing, thinking, or worrying, the mind has space to recover, just as water needs time to settle and clarify. We don't need to abandon everything to go to the mountains or into the forest to live mindfully. Each day, just spending a few minutes sitting quietly, doing nothing, not thinking, not rushing, is already sowing a seed of peace in the mind. Even living in a bustling city, we can nurture such stillness. We just need to allow ourselves to stop. Try one morning. Instead of immediately grabbing your phone when you wake up, sit upright by the window. Breathe slowly. Watch the light filter through the leaves. Listen to the birds calling each other. Feel your breath flowing in and out. No need to try to control it. Just be present with yourself. You will be surprised to realize your mind is lighter, and worries are no longer as frightening as you once thought. True happiness, according to the Buddhist teaching, does not lie in possession, but in letting go. He once taught that desire is the root of suffering. When we constantly want more, want to control everything according to our will, we will always live in a state of anxiety, defensiveness, and tension. But when we know contentment, know when to stop, we will feel a simple yet profound joy, like a cool glass of water on a summer afternoon, like the shade of a tree on a long road. Some people have many things, but are always uneasy. Others have little, but their hearts are light and free. The difference lies not in material possessions, but in the mind. A mind that knows how to stay, how to listen, how to turn inward, will always find peace. Conversely, a mind that always chases after illusions, even if it achieves one thing, will worry about losing it, or fear it's not enough. My dear friend, if today your heart is troubled, your mind tired, give yourself a few minutes to sit still. No need for strict meditation. Just sit quietly as a friend to yourself, perhaps beside a cup of tea, by a window, or on the porch. Feel your breath, feel your heartbeat, and allow yourself not to do anything. That is also a way to nourish your soul. If you can practice this once each day, your mind will gradually transform, like turbid water. If left undisturbed, the sediment will settle. When the mind is calm, wisdom will manifest. When wisdom manifests, suffering will recede. We don't need to understand all truths, don't need to analyze all causes. Just knowing how to return, how to listen, how to stop is enough to open the door and step into our inner self. One rainy afternoon, I once heard a young Zen master say, "In fact, you don't need to go far to find light. The light lies within each breath. It's just a matter of whether we turn back to see it." That statement is simple, yet profound, like a faint lamp in the dark night. If you feel lost, if you are struggling with choices, then pause for a moment. Sometimes, just stopping. We will realize we are not lost, but just moving too fast. Because true happiness is not having everything, but being able to smile at the simplest things. A ray of sunshine through the clouds, a breeze caressing your cheek, a kind word, a moment of sitting still. When you can live deeply in each of those moments, you don't need to search for anything more. You have returned to yourself, and that is happiness. Now, if you can, gently close your eyes. Breathe in, knowing you are breathing in. Breathe out, knowing you are breathing out. No need to try, no need to control. Just be present here, right in this moment. Feel the life flowing within you. Feel gratitude that you are still breathing, still alive, still able to return. And in that silence, you will feel the most precious thing, a soul that knows how to pause for peace. One very early morning, when the dew had not yet dissipated on the blades of grass, an old woman sat quietly on the porch, holding a warm cup of tea, her eyes gazing at the distant mountain range. On her wrinkled face was a stillness difficult to name. People said she had lived alone for a long time, never complaining, never angry, never blaming life for being unfair. Anyone who visited was greeted with a gentle smile. Someone once asked her, "How can you be so serene amidst such an unpredictable life?" She just took a sip of tea and softly replied, "Because I learned not to overthink too much, not to harbor unreal things in my heart. When the wind passes, let the wind pass. When clouds drift, let the clouds drift. Just keep your heart calm, and suffering will lighten. Just a simple sentence, but enough to stir someone troubled by life. In everyday life, we too easily let our minds wander amidst things that haven't happened or have already passed. A strange glance, a careless word, an unclear situation, all easily become pretexts for us to think, to create stories in our heads, and then fall into a state of unease. But the Buddha once taught, a thought arises, an affliction arises, a thought stills, peace arises. It is precisely in the moment the mind gives rise to this or that thought that afflictions begin to sprout. It doesn't come from outside, but from the uncontrolled imagination within us. You are watching on the Fat Phap Lin Ung channel. A woman recounted that she used to suffer from chronic insomnia just by thinking her husband was hiding something. When her husband came home late from work, she interpreted it as him having someone else. When her husband forgot to buy her favorite item, she thought he no longer cared. Gradually, these unreal thoughts became a wall between the couple. One day, in a state of exhaustion, she let go of everything and cried. Her husband just looked at her silently and said, "I was just trying to work extra to buy you a gift you once liked. But lately, you've been so distant. I don't know what I did wrong." At that moment, she broke down, realizing that the one suffering was not just her, but also her husband, who was silently trying. Just because of one interpretive thought, she lost so many peaceful days. The Buddha taught that wisdom is not knowing a lot, but clearly seeing the nature of one's own mind. When we see the mind starting to wander, when we see ourselves constructing a story in our head that has no proof, stop. Take a deep breath. Return to the present. Ask yourself, is what I'm thinking truly real? Or is it just imagination? That is the first step of awakening. A thought arises. An affliction arises. That teaching sounds very gentle, but carries a very profound awakening power. Because most suffering in life doesn't come from what happens, but from how we think about it. Overthinking is a blurry lens that prevents us from clearly seeing the person in front of us, clearly seeing emotions, clearly seeing reality. And from there, all connections become distorted. Only when we learn to let go of the habit of overthinking will our mind return to its original clear state. Like a lake, even a gentle breeze can create ripples. But when the wind stops, the lake becomes as flat as a mirror again. The human mind is the same. Don't try to control everything. Don't strain to understand everything. Some things just need to be observed, accepted, and then allowed to pass, like the wind. Interpret a little less, and your mind will be as light as a white cloud. Clouds hold no form, wind keeps no path. So why do we hold on to things that burden our hearts? Once, a young novice monk asked the abbot, "Master, how can I stop thinking so much? My mind is tangled like a ball of thread." The master just looked at him and said, "Go to the back of the temple and look at the bamboo tree. It just stands there. It doesn't say anything. It doesn't explain anything. But when it rains, it still stands. When the sun shines, it still stands. When the wind passes, it just gently sways." The bamboo tree doesn't need to understand anything because it knows it is a bamboo tree. The young novice monk didn't fully understand then, but after many years of practice, he truly grasped it. It is precisely the not trying to understand, not trying to cling. That is wisdom. Wisdom doesn't come from reasoning, but from deep, silent observation and understanding with compassion. A wise person is one who knows how to be silent, how to let go, how to see with compassion. That teaching doesn't require us to become a saint to achieve it. Just each day, each morning, we begin with gentle mindfulness. Sit down for a few minutes. Close your eyes. Listen to your breath. Don't rush to think about what you need to do today. Just know you are alive. Know your breath flowing in and out. Know you are present here. Even if life is busy, this moment is still the safest refuge for the mind. Then you will see that if each morning begins with a thought of peace, the whole day will be light as a drifting cloud. Whether it's sunny or rainy, whether others act as you wish or not, you will still retain a part of inner peace. Because you know, happiness is not when everything out there goes your way, but when your mind knows how to let go of unworthy things, knows how to accept what comes, and knows how to cherish every moment that is present. If you are tired, if you have just had a sad day, or are standing amidst confused thoughts, then right now, please pause for a moment. Close your eyes. Let go of everything. Breathe in deeply. Breathe out slowly. Imagine a rice field welcoming the wind, a lotus flower in a still pond, or a crescent moon rising high in the quiet night. Those images don't need you to analyze them. They just need you to feel them. And when your mind is still enough to see the beauty of simplicity, you will understand that peace is not far away, but right in every moment, you know how to return to yourself. Life will continue. Anxieties will reappear. But you don't need to chase after all those endless streams of thought. Each day, remember that a moment of peace is a gift to yourself. A minute without overthinking is a minute of returning to peace. And if tomorrow you forget all the profound things, just remember one simple thing. Think a little less, and your heart will be lighter. And then just live like that, silently, yet profoundly, mindfully, yet gently, serenely, like white clouds in the autumn sky. You are doing very well. As long as you know how to return, how to sit with yourself, no matter what life is like, the light within you will always be present, soft as a breath, subtle as drifting clouds, yet enough to illuminate a new day, beginning with peace. One late summer afternoon, as the rain had just stopped, the scent of damp earth mingled with the cool breeze, touching something deep within the heart. It wasn't an explosive happiness, nor a profound sadness, but a feeling very difficult to name, as if after all the exhaustion, the mind only needed to sit still, watch the clouds drift by, and take a long, deep breath. It was then that one realized, all these years, we had been diligently searching for a place to return to, yet never realized that home always lies within our own mind. We live in an era where thought seems to never rest. The mind is like a whirlwind, moving from worrying about yesterday to hastily creating scenarios for tomorrow. We often think that we must understand everything, must anticipate every situation to live with peace of mind. But the Buddha once taught, a mind that does not grasp at conditions is a liberated mind. Human suffering does not come from external lack or turmoil, but mostly from the incessant thoughts within us. Once, a disciple asked the Buddha, "Exalted One, why is it that the more I think and analyze, the more uneasy my heart becomes?" The Buddha smiled kindly and pointed to the still lake in front of them. When the water is turbid, the more you stir it, the murkier it becomes. When the water is still, the sediment can settle, and you can see the bottom of the lake. The mind is the same. The more you think, the more you judge, the more you lose your stillness. Reflecting, isn't it true that many times we think we are in control of our lives, but are actually being swept away by our own streams of thought? A small thing, someone says, a glance not as expected. An ambiguous silence can make us weave countless scenarios, and from there, we get hurt. We do not suffer because of others, but because of what we think about them. We are not exhausted by the external world, but because our mind keeps wandering, not knowing when to stop. But then there will come a time when you no longer want to run. There will be a moment when you are quietly closing a book or watching a child sleep peacefully beside you, and you feel your heart soften, not necessarily sad, but very deep, not necessarily tired, but very much wanting to let go. At that point, you begin to ask yourself, is there anywhere where I don't need to try to understand, don't need to force myself to be happy, but can simply breathe, simply be myself? And then, if you remain silent for a long time, you will hear a very small voice inside. Go home. Not the house of bricks and tiles in the world, but the home of the mind, the place where you are sheltered by your own stillness, where no one hurts you and you hurt no one, where you no longer have to analyze right or wrong, no longer have to prove yourself a good person. There is only you, whole and serene as you inherently are. A Zen master once said, just by stopping and breathing, you have arrived home. How simple and profound that statement is, because in each mindful breath, there is no past to regret, no future to worry about. There is only the present, where you are living, where you are feeling. The breath brings us back. Each time we breathe in, we know we are alive. Each time we breathe out, we let go of all burdens. And so, each breath, like silent footsteps, brings us to the land of peace. We cannot stop the storms outside from coming, but we can learn to take shelter from the rain within our own soul. Thoughts will also be like clouds drifting across the sky. If we do not cling, do not chase, then the sky within our heart will become clear again. The Buddha taught that whoever lives with mindfulness of breath can find liberation. Because in the breath there is life, there is awakening, and there is also the path for us to return to ourselves. A person who had once been lost in life, after many years of struggling to find peace through relationships, work, and fame, shared, I realized that no place gave me a sense of stability like sitting down, breathing, and smiling at myself. The statement sounds light, but contains an entire journey of awakening. If you are hearing these words on a tiring day, if you are feeling empty amidst a life full of laughter, then perhaps this is the time you need to return. Return not to escape, but to nurture, not to close your heart, but to understand it, not to forget the world, but to be serene enough to live amidst the world. You don't need to go far, nor do you need to study all the Buddhist scriptures to find peace. You just need to know how to stop, just once. Stop to feel your breath. Stop to look deeply into your heart, to see that everything you have been searching for all along is present right here, in this very moment. You are the only one who can open the door to return to yourself. No one else can do that for you. And when you return, you will no longer be alone. Because in that place, there is your serene presence. There is compassion blossoming. There is awakening shining, like the full moon illuminating all past worries. Perhaps this life will still be full of changes. Perhaps you will still stumble, still be sad, still hurt. But as long as you know how to return in each breath, those sorrows will also become gentler. Those hurts will also teach you how to love more. And each day you live will no longer be a series of anxieties, but a journey back with gratitude and inner freedom. So, if you feel peaceful hearing these words, allow yourself to return to yourself more often. Take time each day to be silent for a few minutes, to breathe in deeply and breathe out slowly. No need to think anything. Just feel. Feel that you are alive and you are complete. When your mind has returned home, you will see that there is nothing more to prove, nothing more to achieve. You will stop tormenting yourself over what has passed, no longer tired from worrying about what has not yet come. You will see that even on a gently rainy morning, as you sit by the window, holding a warm cup of tea, your heart can be filled with happiness, because you are truly present in your own life. And now, before bidding farewell, I wish you a small blessing. I do not wish for anything grand, only that every thought be purified and every moment be peaceful. May you always remember that the home of your mind is not far away, but right within each breath you take. Go home, weary one. Go home to where your true self awaits.